Evander, and he's going to help me out a little bit today. This is my daughter's barrel horse. We're going to talk about adaptations. And typically when we're talking about adaptations, we talk about wild creatures, and obviously horses today, most of them are not still wild. They are domesticated, and so their features change just a little bit from those in the wild. But it's always much funner and much better to have a model than to just be talking and have nothing fun to look at. So we're going to look at Evander. There are 3 different kinds of adaptations. An adaptation is a process that an organism will go through to survive, to make its life easier, and it is a change over a long period of time that will occur in an organism to help its survival. You can't think of it as being a change that happens from one generation to the next. We're talking about hundreds or thousands of years for these changes to actually occur in organisms. And so we're going to talk about our Evander. 3 types of adaptations that we have. The first one is structural. When we think of a structural change or an adaptation, we're talking about physical parts of the organism that help it survive. So if we were talking about monkeys, we would say that their tails have developed into like a 3rd or a 5th hand for them, to where they can swing from trees and things like that. On horses, some of the structural adaptations that they have developed over the years, one of them would be the tail. The tail gets fairly long and it's very coarse, and obviously they use this whenever it's fly season or insect season, so that whenever they swish it, they can get the insects off of most of their body. Also, the mane is long, and it covers up a vital part of their neck that is tender to insects and so on. The forelock, which is the front part, thank you, Evander, the front part of their forelock is to keep the flies out of their eyes. Now, domesticated animals, like I said, we've developed into a shorter forelock. They're not as long as you will see out in the wild, and a lot of people clip their manes or do things like that to make them look prettier, okay, as we're going to show them. But that's a structural thing. Also, their hooves, they're developed not for gripping. They're not going to be real good at climbing rocks and mountains, but let's get this out of here. There we go. All right. So their hooves are shaped and they are designed for speed. Okay, and a horse's ability to run and get away and maneuver is what keeps it protected in the wild. Now, he has a shoe on. Once again, a domesticated animal. Their feet have become tender over the years, and so we put shoes on them to protect them from rocks. In nature, obviously, you're not going to have that metal shoe protecting them, and the hoof is going to be much harder. They also use their hooves for protection against predators and other horses. Mares, which are female horses, tend to use their they use their back feet more, so they kick more. Stallions, if you've ever seen shows where you see stallions fighting in the wild, you're going to see that they rear up and they'll paw. They will kick, but they tend to use their front end more, and mares tend to use their back end more. Okay, so those are structural. Those are body parts that help them adapt and survive in nature. All right, we have behavioral. A behavioral is like if we were talking about fish swimming, the fact that they swim in schools where there's hundreds of them together for protection. If we talking about horses, horses in the wild will always be in a herd. You won't see a horse that's off by itself unless it's a young stallion that's looking to develop a herd of its own. But they're going to bunch together in a herd for protection. Another thing that they're going to do, once again, we talked about them kicking. Okay, they've developed the behavior of using their hooves and their feet for protection. Their ears. If you notice their ears, when there's a sound or a movement, he's probably not going to do it for us. There we go. You see how he puts his ears towards it. You can also see his nose kind of flares out whenever he's a little bit scared of something or wants to look at something, okay? When you're riding a horse, this is just a little added bonus. When you're riding a horse, it will hold its ears back a lot of times, listening for your commands or making sure that it's paying attention, okay? Mander's nosy. So, their ears are used as a behavior. They can control their ears. They point their ears in the direction of something that they want to see and take notice of. Their ears are very flexible. They're going to come back. As I move back here, you see his ears come back so that he can still hear me. Okay. All right, there are some other things. Their eyes, for instance, they just see wide ranges to the side. A horse can't see directly in front of them or directly behind them. That's why whenever you're around a horse, a domesticated horse, you have to be cautious and not move straight up behind them so that it might scare them or they might be unaware of what's going on back there. The third type of adaptation is a physiological. Now, not only is it hard to say, but it's a little harder to explain. It is an adaptation over hundreds of years that has occurred to this animal that happens without its control. The horse has no control over this type of adaptation. For instance, in the wintertime, a horse gets winter hair, gets its long hair. Then in the summertime, like we're at right now, it's early spring, you can see now, she brushed him already, so it's hard to, but you can probably see the hair that will come off. He is shedding right now. Whenever it gets summer and he's lost all of this winter hair, okay, he won't need it for warmth, so he'll shed all of that off and he'll be much cooler. That's not something he controls. That's not something that he decides, hey, I'm cold, I'm gonna grow hair. That's something that just happens physiologically. Okay, it's just an involuntary thing that happens. Now, another little added bonus is that when a horse starts to grow hair in the winter, it has very little to do actually with the temperature outside. You would think that if you kept them warm, they wouldn't grow the hair. And that's true to a certain degree. Okay, it does help to keep them warm. But if you want to have a horse that's pretty all winter long, where you can show them and compete on them and have them look good for judges, you have to keep lights on them. Whenever the sunlight starts becoming less each day, okay, whenever your days become shorter in the wintertime, that's what causes them to start growing their hair. So horses that are programmed not to grow their hair, they're kept inside barns where they're warm, and also lights are kept on them all the time so that they don't know when the days are getting shorter. Okay. Another thing is their teeth. Horses in the wild eat a lot of roughage. They're going to have more sticks and harsh grasses and twigs and seedlings and things like that are harder for them to chew. So if you have a domesticated horse, their teeth never stop growing. And that becomes a problem because we feed them very good hay now. Grasses are easy for them to chew. They don't have to eat the roughage. They don't have to fight so hard for their food. They can be pickier, and so their teeth don't get worn down. This is another physiological structure. It's something that just happens. They don't control it, but their teeth never stop growing. And you may have heard stories about old cowboys that could look at a horse's mouth and tell how old they are. And that is one reason why, is because the teeth never quit growing, and so they look different. Got a little bit of supper in here. So they look different on an older horse than they do on a younger horse. Okay. As we have a domesticated horse, we have to get a dentist to come and file their teeth down, especially their back teeth back here, their molars. When they keep growing, they get very sharp edges on them. And so the horse's mouth will start getting ulcers or sores in there where their teeth are rubbing. So we hire people to come, and they put a really long file inside their mouth. They crank their mouth open, put a device in here that holds it open, and they get a file, and they go in and they file these back teeth down. Okay, and that keeps them from getting these sores and so on in their mouth. But that's another physiological type of adaptation that horses have developed, is because in the wild, if their teeth wore down and they didn't grow, then they would lose that ability to eat and chew the harsher roughage that they have. Okay, well, Evander, you've been very good. We're gonna film you doing a few other things that you like better than this, and we appreciate it.